The race for North Carolina governor just took a very strange turn. A new CNN report alleges that the GOP nominee, North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, once posted about his affinity for transgender porn, pro-slavery beliefs, and called himself a, quote, black Nazi. Yikes. Per CNN, in one post on a forum called Nude Africa, Robinson wrote, quote, slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. I wish they could bring it back. I would certainly buy a few. And despite his recent history of anti-transgender rhetoric, Robinson's posts paint a different story. Robinson once reportedly wrote, quote, I like watching tranny on girl porn. And by the way, that's not his first apparent flip-flop. In 2020, he called for a complete abortion ban, but later walked that back when it was revealed he paid for his now wife to have an abortion in the 80s, according to the Daily Beast. On the Nude Africa forum in 2010, Robinson also said he did not care about a celebrity having an abortion and wrote, quote, I don't care. I just want to see the sex tape. CNN's K-File says Robinson was posting on the forum from 2008 to 2012. Robinson, meanwhile, has vehemently denied making the post. Let's watch.
Well, guys, the news media is at it again. My opponent is at it again. You all have seen the half-truths and outright lies of Josh Stein on these ads over and over again. And now a story leaked by him to CNN is appearing now. Let me reassure you, the things that you will see in that story, those are not the words of Mark Robinson. You know my words, you know my character, and you know that I have been completely transparent in this race and before. Folks, this race right now, our opponents are desperate to shift the focus here from the substantive issues and focus on what you are concerned with to salacious tabloid trash. We cannot allow that to happen. And folks, we've seen this type of stuff in the past as well. Clarence Thomas famously once said he was the victim of a high-tech lynching. Well, it looks like Mark Robinson is too, by a man who refuses to stand on stage and debate me about the real issues that face you. Instead, they want to focus on salacious tabloid lies.
Unfortunately for Robinson, CNN's report shows the email address tied to the forum accounts was the same one used for him online and on social media. His location also matched, and he used some of the same unique phrases. The Carolina Journal reports the Trump campaign, who previously endorsed Robinson, has now tried distancing itself from Robinson and asked him to withdraw from the race because of the article. They also asked him to stay away from all Trump and Vance events when they campaign in North Carolina.
It adds up since Robinson was scheduled to speak at a Vance campaign event Wednesday, but his campaign announced he tested positive for COVID and would not be attending. Amber, I'm so happy you were the one to read the intro for this with all of those details. My goodness, just when we think we couldn't be shocked more, in politics, a story like this comes out.
Oh boy. I mean, Robinson has not been a great candidate since the beginning. I think this is probably the nail in his coffin. The previous one was when he, after calling for an abortion ban with no exceptions, him and his wife went out on camera and admitted that she had had an abortion. Gosh, yeah, it's brutal. And from what I understand, according to my sources, the people who recruited him to run had this opposition research, as they often do, right?
I mean, that's just political.
People do,
malfeasance to do that, yeah.
Right. I mean, people do vulnerability studies before candidates run for office. And if you have somebody who's good at their job doing the vulnerability study, then you're going to find things like this. We heard the same thing with George Santos, right? That he was warned that if he ended up winning this race, that a lot of this potentially legal issues would come up, and they did. In this case, I would like to know if Mark Robinson was told that he shouldn't run and he did it anyway, and what exactly the people around him told him when they found out that he had this history of really bizarre porn website comments.
Yeah, it really is incredible if you think about it. Obviously, 46 days left in this race. I think Morning Consult, even before all these details came out, had the race at 50 for Josh Stein, the incumbent Attorney General, longtime Attorney General Democrat of North Carolina, to Robinson's 37%. We know 46 days isn't an eternity in politics. It's a short time, but it's also an eternity. Do you think there's any way that he comes back from this, or is it just the Trump campaign? The Trump campaign is going to be there. The former president's going to be there on tomorrow, actually.
Right.
Do you think he addresses it? Does Mark Robinson even stand a chance of coming back after all this?
Well, if the Trump campaign is smart, they will just stay as far away from possible, not address it. We know Trump's not the most disciplined, so we'll see what happens. But I will say that the polls suggested and the internals that I've seen suggested before this scandal that he's probably going to lose by 10 points, somewhere between 5 and 10 points.
Which is a blowout in a state like North Carolina.
Exactly. So I don't think that it was a particularly competitive race anyway because of the initial poor candidate selection. It's kind of wild that he was lieutenant governor before any of this coming out.
He's not a new face. I mean, he was elected statewide.
Exactly.
And he's the sitting lieutenant governor of North Carolina.
Yeah. So do I think he can come back from it? No. I mean, I don't think he was going to win anyway. So in that sense, I think Republicans were probably already kind of counting this race out. So it's not as big of a blow as if it were a really tight race. But you do have to be concerned about the potential for this to harm up the ballot, right?
And down the ballot too, right?
Sure.
You've got, I think they have near supermajorities in the state legislature for the Republicans. Obviously, you've had a 2-term Democratic governor statewide. I wonder if there's ramifications to your point up and down the ballot. And you've got Laura Trump, who's a North Carolina native, who's the co-chair of the RNC.
Right.
So a lot of eyes are going to be certainly on North Carolina. J.D. Vance was there this week. Obviously, the former president's there tomorrow. I just wonder the ramifications up and down the ballot, to your point.
Right. And the other wrinkle here is that there was a deadline yesterday at 5 p.m. for Mark Robinson to drop out of the race, and the Republicans would be able to replace him with a different candidate. He declined to do that. Instead, he came out and issued this statement alleging that this is all false, that it's all lies.
Do you think there was some thought to that timing, releasing all this with that deadline? I think it was yesterday, right? As you rightly pointed out, the deadline.
No, so maybe the people who shopped this to CNN had that in mind.
To kind of force him out right before.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, knowing K-File, I don't think he would have waited if he had this big of a scoop. He would have probably just run it as soon as he had it. So maybe he was tipped off or given some assistance, and that just happened to be the timing that worked out, or the Democrats planned it that way. I don't think CNN did, at least not K-File. I have plenty of qualms with other CNN reporters. I like Andrew Kaczynski. So.
Well, and interestingly enough, I mean, North Carolina is one of these early vote states. I mean, ballots start dropping, I think, within the next week or so.
Right.
I know voting is actually underway today for the first time in Virginia, Minnesota, and South Dakota for in-person early voting. So the election is here, and it's certainly going to be here in North Carolina in the coming days.
Yeah, and this is another reminder that you can't force candidates out. Ultimately,
and you can't shame them out either, seemingly.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with Joe Biden, there were reports that he was threatened with the 25th Amendment. So you can apply a lot of pressure and make it really uncomfortable for candidates to stay in. I don't know if this means the RGA is going to pull money from the North Carolina race. They probably should and put it to use elsewhere in other places.
And you're seeing some Republicans in North Carolina. I think both senators are distancing themselves, as they should, and up and down, a few House members as well.
Yeah, but I mean, if people really have the political will and want to stay in the race, same thing with George Santos. They will, even if it's to the detriment of themselves, their family, and their party, unfortunately.
Which I think we will see this happen over the next 46 days in North Carolina. I don't think he's moving on from this race, certainly to your point.
No, I don't think so. He seems like he's doubling down, actually. The Clarence Thomas comparison was an interesting one.
Very rich.
Take a break and be back with more Rising after this.